So you're teaching Islam is 5, but then when I go and study literature, economics, politics, history, I'm taught that the Western deen is sophisticated, deals with the relationship between the individual and the collective, deals with the relationship between the poor and the wealthy, deals with the relationship even between various people on the spectrum and psychology of neurological ability and physical ability, the disabled, the this, the that. All you can do is go, wow, subhanallah, that these people, they have such a sophisticated way to address the human reality, right, on how to systemize the life of people. And then you go to madrasa that very evening, and what are you taught? Here's the dua to go into the toilet. Here's the dua to come out of the toilet. You know, when we say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubathi wal khaba'ith, you need this dua before going into university now, because there's more khaba'ith in the lecture hall that is corrupting the minds of our sisters, where they're learning everything is patriarchy, everything is inequality, race theory, you know, and so many other things. Everything is white supremacy. Everything is, you see, male supremacy and all of these things. That when they come home, they start viewing that their father telling what to do is male supremacy. While their father, who is a qawwam, yeah, now he's viewed as this is patriarchy. So what's happening is that we have a very sophisticated deen being taught to a 12, 15-year-old in the secular schooling system, and the madrasa is ignoring that. So anyone who wants to start a madrasa should not think about how much he charges per head. And he should not only think about the dua for entering the toilet and leaving the toilet and entering the masjid. We need the dua and the knowledge of how to enter the world, not just the toilet and the masjid. The world is more wider and vaster and more complicated than entering a toilet and entering a masjid. There's so much more there. And what the children need to be taught is in the madrasa system into how to counteract all the shubuhat created within the secular system. So if they're teaching evolution, we need to teach them the Islamic view on evolution. If they're taught feminism, we need to teach them the Islamic view on what is a breadwinner and what is a homemaker in Islam. If they're taught patriarchy, we need to talk about the fact that women had the vote 1,000 years before they even, while the West was arguing whether women have a soul. That's what they were arguing. Bless them. They were arguing, subhanAllah, whether women, you know, twizzling their mustaches, thinking, does a woman even have a soul? Our women were giving bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam 1,350 years ago, meaning women had full political participation in the Islamic political system. You see? So unfortunately, the madaris are not responding to the complexity of the problem of life, whilst, which is worse, the vacuum that is created within this very narrow secular way of teaching Islam, right? What happens is the vacuum is then filled by social studies, economics, politics that they're studying at university, which naturally builds in the youngster, the young man, young woman, a great awe, a haiba, a respect for all the Western sciences, because they're going to think the Western sciences are so much more sophisticated in how they talk about Gaza than my Maulana who says, do dua, fix yourself, worry about your family, don't worry about anything else. So there is a massive disconnect between the madrasa that almost seems to be in a, what I call like a, what do they call them? Time capsule. It's like in a time capsule where it doesn't know whether it's speaking to 2026 or whether it doesn't know what year it's in. It doesn't know what year it's in. It doesn't know what country it's in. It doesn't know what time it lives in. It doesn't know the state of the ummah. It just teaches. So for us in our madrasa to practically now give solutions, we teach critical thinking. So we teach that when you say Islam is the truth, yeah, if you say Islam is the truth and you say, oh, that's just a brute fact. The problem with that is that's called a tautology. That's like saying Islam is Islam or the truth is the truth. You need to know, what does truth mean? Does it agree with the aql? Does it deal with the relationship between the individual and the collective? Does it engage with the spiritual instinct? And does it deal with the organic needs of human beings? Does it agree with the human emotion? Does it have a system as well as ways of having rituals? So we need to know that what is the truth, and then we test Islam to see that if it complies. Even Allah gave falsification tests in the Quran, that if this was not the truth, you would find therein many contradictions, right? So we need to basically build a falsification test and then plug in every ideology, whether it's communism or, you know, or capitalism or liberalism, and see, do they meet that litmus test? Or it could be Buddhism or Taoism or Christianity or Judaism. This is what we teach in our madrasa. We render, another problem is sometimes people say Islam is a religion within the modern usage of the word. And people say Islam is an ideology, which is also a problem in the modern